Did you know there is a recording studio in Lancaster creating brand new and birthing fresh new artists? That's right, you don't have to go to a major label anymore. Lanark Records' goal is to bring new music recorded by real people in a real studio to the fans of, but not limited to, now Frank, I'm going to try this in one breath, rockabilly, rock and roll, blues, old school country and western, 60s pop, British invasion, stax soul, I'm cheating here, breathing, girl group, surf music, Americana, folk, and roots music. And today we welcome from Lanark Records, Frank Barrett. Good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
I'll tell you what, you are soft-spoken for an entertainer.
It must be early morning.
We're going to get some coffee in you. Well, tell me the story about Lanark Entertainment, Lanark Records, how it came to be.
Well, it's two convergent paths of people that grew up in slightly different areas. I grew up in the Philadelphia area and played in bands on the heavy metal scene, hard rock, if you will. And
you still don't have your hair from that era, do you?
Oh, my goodness. It's sitting in a drawer somewhere that I can't find.
I don't have mine either.
So when the band didn't get signed in Philly, I've always said that was the best career move of my life because I stayed in college and got my degree and started working, but never ever forgot about the music and never stopped playing the music. When I got transferred up to Lancaster and continued to play in the music scene.
But you have a real job.
I do have a real job.
Yeah, a lot of musicians ask that because you know where music is.
Well, there's a funny story that I'll get into later when you get into the record label of people that have done it full time and the way they feel about people that actually have jobs.
It's a risk. And it's really a risk when you get out there, putting yourself out there.
It really is. So in the Lancaster circuit, I'd be playing with various and sundry people. I'm a bassist, and I met in my travels Quentin Jones, who was just about ready to get signed by Capitol Records. He has a band called the Reach Around Rodeo Clowns, and I was intrigued at the name of that. And we started playing together, and I really saw that this guy really knew what he was doing as a producer, as an engineer. He had recorded these albums with some pretty good people with a company he had called List Records with a downtown Lancaster studio called Sound Cage. And he had recorded the likes of Peter Noon and Charlie Gracie and Robert Gordon specifically. And he was going out to do a California tour, and I thought, wow, I'll get to live vicariously through him because we're about the same age, and if I would have gone in the music direction, what would it have been like? Well, the gentleman whose name I'm forgetting at Capitol Records on the plane ride out there died, and then suddenly, well, they weren't interested in the Reach Around Rodeo Clowns anymore, so I saw how vibrant they were and how good Quentin was and said, why don't we start this record label up again? So we did, and that was about 3 years ago. There was space in the building that I worked in, and it's a beautiful space. It's a third floor. It's got arched ceilings. It's just acoustically, it's perfect. So we decided to go back. We have a board, and we have Pro Tools, and we have all the modern conveniences, but we also have the Mara tape machine. We bounce on the 2-inch tape, and we come back. We're not big on dubstep. We're not big on any of the real technical stuff. We really wanted to go back because we'd seen that the young people were getting back into vinyl records and roots music.
The pure sound.
The pure sound. That's exactly right. So we started it, and we're here 3 years, and as I was preparing for the interview, I looked at all the releases that we have, and we have quite a few. We have, our latest release is Linda Gale Lewis, who's Jerry Lee Lewis's sister, who's just an amazing woman. That album just came out. She's touring Sweden, and the album is selling over there, and there's just a big article just today, as a matter of fact, in the Austin newspaper all about the album and how much fun she had coming up to Lancaster and dealing with us.
Spellbound, ever since I first saw you. Spellbound, I could never be untrue. Spellbound, it's the way it should be. Spellbound, you're the one.
There's a huge list of artists that I see before me, but one you wanted to talk about was Charlie Gracie. Talk about Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie Gracie. Quentin had played with Charlie Gracie for about 15, 20 years and came out with an album in 2002 called I'm All Right, which was his comeback album under the List Records label. So then Charlie was delighted to come back up again and record with Quentin, and Abco Records of Beatles and Rolling Stones fame picked it up.
And the Bee Gees.
And the Bee Gees and Peter Noon and so many people. And that was exciting going up there into their offices as that album was coming out, because it was just about before we had started this Lanark Records. So the album was released on Abco Records called For the Love of Charlie and did very well, and Quentin produced it and wrote a lot of songs. And then when we formed Lanark, Charlie, who's 78 years old and is still a dynamic, terrific performer, he played at the Roots and Blues Festival last year as part of the Lanark Records stage that we had over at the Elks. Can still play and sing, and he's just the nicest guy. He had a #1 hit called Butterfly in 1957, and as you can see by the album, Paul McCartney and George Harrison, they idolized the guy. He's very big in England. He's over in England right now recording. So he came over and back up to the studio, rather, and wanted to record either a gospel album or a rock and roll album. And we said, well, why don't we do both? So this album that you're holding, it's called Angel on My Shoulder, is it's almost like double fantasy. There's a feel to it where there's gospel and then there's rock and roll songs. The one song, Closer Thou Art to Me, Dee Dee Sharp, the mashed potato girl, came up and sang, and on one take nailed the vocals on that song, which is just fantastic. The album has a real fun feel to it. We had some nice guest musicians from the Hooters that came up. Eric Bazillion played mandolin on a song, and that was just a real fun time in there. He's a very gracious, gentle man, and we promoted it down in Philadelphia, in Manayunk, to just people are just amazed that at 78 he can still play and sing the way he does.
Okay, what do we want to hear from Charlie?
I'd put on Closer Walk.
Give a listen.
Yes, it's right now. God is working it out right now. God is working it out, working it out. Yeah, for you and me.
It's By the Way. Today we are lucky to have Frank Barrett with us from Lanark Entertainment. Do you remember the first album or project that you were involved in locally?
Oh, yeah. There's a band out there called the Rockettes that few people in this country know of, and they were actually the precursor to the Stray Cats. You can go on to YouTube and see them on American bandstands.
Mr. Brian Setzer and the boys.
Well, that was before that. Yeah, the Stray Cats, as the Rockettes actually came over from England and saw the Stray Cats playing and said, oh, no, you need a whole new different look, because they were Long Island guys and they're wearing jeans and long hair. And Smutty Smith, who is the bass player for the Rockettes, really a dynamic performer. He also cuts hair, so he got them, all duded up. They recorded their album, and the rest is history. In fact, they're still very friendly with Brian Setzer, and Brian Setzer wrote the liner notes for the first album that Lanark put out, which was really exciting for us. They had a hit back in the late 80s, and they got back together, and the band includes Danny Harvey. Danny Harvey's a legendary rockabilly player who went over to England, became part of the Rockettes, and he is now married to Linda Gale Lewis's daughter, which led to Linda Gale Lewis recording with us. So, it is a small world in the music business once you get in there. But anyway, Danny had played terrifically on the Rockettes album. The Rockettes album did very well. We had one of the main stages at the Viva Las Vegas Rockabilly Festival last year, and the Rockettes performed as well as Robert Gordon. But this song from the Rockettes album that we really like is called Why Do You Love Me? It's really a nice single that we put out by them.
All right, let's give it a listen.
If I don't treat you right.
Welcome back from another magical moment. We're with Frank Barrett, the operations manager. That makes you, it's a big name tag.
Ooh.
From Lanark Entertainment. There may be some musicians listening right now, Frank, and there's a lot of questions in their mind. How do they get involved in a small studio? Because they can't afford the bigger companies. Do they need to know how many songs they want to record before they come to you?
Not necessarily. One of the we have local bands that come in quite a bit. We have, Stu Huggins of the Susquehanna River Band is recording an album with us right now. One of the areas that we think, and one of the reasons that we started the studio, was to get musicians that aren't necessarily well-versed in studio technique, to bring them in and to teach them about it. We had a band come up from Philadelphia, and in one day they came up. It was like $500, and here's the song was ready. We recorded it, showed them the recording process, gave them a mix. They left with 10 CDs.
That's a question then. How long does it take in a perfect world to put together what you want to do?
Again, your first question was about preparation. The more prepared you are as far as the song, the quicker that it goes. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a complete product to give to us, because a lot of times the producers and the engineers will give tips on maybe to make a hook sound a little bit better. And I was in the studio for 3 different albums. Some of the intimidating studios, we were in Sigma Sound, we were at the Warehouse in Philadelphia with different bands before I knew Quentin. And a studio can be a very intimidating place because you're expected to know how to do it. And, once that red light goes on, you have a tendency to be like, zzz. With the digital age, it's not quite like that anymore. You can take and then do a retake, and we like to have a fun, relaxed attitude. And if you're lacking for musicians, we've had guys that have come in, and girls actually have come in, and they're songwriters, and they'll come in with their acoustic guitar, and they'll say, hey, can I get this recorded? We have a stable of musicians, because we're all local Lancaster people, that come in and record it, and, it could be anything from horns to upright bass to all kinds of percussion.
So the question is, let me stop you there. What equipment might they need? Like if they're used to their sound, should they bring their equipment?
Our studio has a collection of all kinds of vintage and new equipment. For example, the bass amp that I used, the old Ampeg B25B when I was a teenager, we have in the studio. We have tube amps. We have solid state amps. A lot of times guitar players like having their own sound, and they can bring it in. But we have drums. The drummers tend to be picky people. We all know some drummers, right?
They hang around with the real musicians.
That's right. And a lot of times they're picky about their drums, and they'll bring their own drums. But no, you don't really need a whole lot. I mean, we have a success story that's known as Blue Plate Specials, and they're winning awards now. They came and they spent some money with us and came out. They have been playing around in the circuit, so they were ready to come in and record, and that went very smoothly and very well. We've had other people that have come in that aren't really prepared. One person we sent back home because they were so ill-prepared, and we didn't want them wasting their money. I mean, really, we set up this label so that people could come in that aren't professionals and get a very professional sounding product. One of the things we found that with the success of some of the bigger artists that we have, people are intimidated and think that they're going to get that big studio fear, if you will. No, you'll get the big studio sound, but you'll get it in a very relaxed atmosphere.
You're talking about the good sound. Is there an engineer included in the recording session?
Yes, there is.
Okay. What styles of music overall have the studios produced so far? Let's review that again.
Well, there's surf music. That's pretty big. There's rock and roll. We had Nick Kane of the Mavericks came in and recorded an EP for us that was very nice, and that's more rock and roll and more in the southern rock genre. We've had rockabilly. Robert Gordon, he does not like to be known as a rockabilly artist, but he is one of the quintessential rockabilly artists. Linda Gale Lewis, who we just finished up, she's not so much rockabilly as she is true roots. I mean, when she comes up and she's telling the story about being in the back of the limo with the Millionaire Quartet, and you see how far back she goes, and you also see how she's writing and playing this modern music as well. Our slogan is real people playing real instruments, having real fun.
Talking with Frank Barrett, operations manager for Lanark Entertainment, on today's By the Way. You mentioned the name Robert Gordon. Seems like an interesting character. Tell me about what you know about Rob.
Robert is an interesting character. Quentin has known him for quite a while. I met him up in New York, and we're trying to coax him out of semi-retirement to get another album out of him. He's 67 years old. He's got a gifted voice. He's probably the best baritone you'll ever hear. And it's interesting because he comes down to the studio and he works very, very hard when he's in the studio. And he is your quintessential mercurial artist, where that he's very intense, but he's also very good. His good friend is Rob Stoner. Rob Stoner on bass he was Bob Dylan's musical director for years, and he also, interestingly enough, played bass and keyboards on the single American Pie from Don McLean.
Well, bye-bye.
So, yeah, so him and Marshall Crenshaw came down, and Robert behaved very well with these guys. And
he played nice?
He played nice, and, you need some of that with the music that Robert has and the way he sings. It's exactly what you expect. We love Robert, but he's very interesting. We had a lot of fun recording the album, and one of these songs that him and Rob Stoner wrote is called Little Pig, and that's probably a good one to listen to right now.
Oh, by my chinny chin chin. Well, I'm a wolf and I wanna come in. Oh, by my chinny chin chin. Yeah, I'm a wolf and I wanna come in. Well, I huff and I puff and I huff and I puff and I blow your house in. Yeah, I huff and I puff and I huff and I puff and I blow your house in. Well, you can build it a brick, build it a stone. Look, little gal, I wanna leave you alone. Well, I'm gonna get you, just wait and see. A little pig, you belong to me. Oh, by my chin, chin, chin. Yeah, I'm a wolf and I wanna come in. Oh, by my chin, chin, chin. Yeah, I'm a wolf and I wanna come in. Well, I huff and I puff and I huff and I puff and I blow your house in.
A lot of talent from around the area, a lot of talent from out of the area. Has there ever been a band just put together from talent right in Lancaster County?
Absolutely. There's a couple of them. They're Quentin's band, the Rodeo Clowns. They're local guys, and they have quite a nationwide following. We played B.B. King's in New York with Charlie Gracie, and Jimmy Vivino mentioned that he loves the band, the Rodeo Clowns, and we mentioned, well, that's him, that's Quentin right there, and he says, I just think that's terrific. And they're a fun little band. It's a genre of rockabilly called psychobilly. More in the horror vein, but it's all written in good humor and good fun. And they have a real great song called I'm Obsessed.
And we can play that on a Sunday morning?
We can.
I'm obsessed with the thought of you and how you make me feel when you walk on by. 'Cause you're the best, and I'm obsessed.
Okay, there's got to be some more family-friendly entertainment than being obsessed.
We love the edge that the Rodeo Clowns deliver to the label. There's a band called the Burlicues. We went back in time a little bit, figuring let's do some instrumentals in the vein of the big band era, but right after big band and right before rock and roll hit it big. So this is me and my buddies. We put a album together of songs that we wrote, and it's mostly instrumentals, although there are some vocals on it. This song's called Swank.
So there's probably a lot of sound guys and band members going, yeah, but what kind of equipment do we have access to? You say it's going to sound good, but I know my equipment. You know those guys. And gals, sorry.
We have a 2-track Tascam machine, and that's it. I'm kidding.
And you use a grease pencil and a razor blade.
Well, and one of the things, when the technology went digital, there's a lot of people that think that they're their own recording engineer because they're in their basement with their little 2-track or 4-track machines. And that's great, and that's fine, and that's actually a terrific way to work on your songs and bring them into the studio, record it like that, and then you get into the real guts of a real studio. Our control room is fueled by an 80-input analog AMEC Angela board with optional automation. We run Pro Tools on it. With plenty of high-end plugins to go around, and we can help you create a unique and one-of-a-kind sound. We also have high-end compressors and outboard gear by Lexicon, Universal Audio, Joe Meek, DBX, Alisys, Bellari, Digitech. We have it all, but the thing that we're most proud of is we have a 24-track 2-inch tape machine, a Mara recording machine for analog sound. So what we do in the mix down, we record on Pro Tools, and we'll bounce it off of. We'll mix it back towards the 2-inch tape, and we get that in the background slight hiss, and that sounds very negative if you're younger and you don't know what I'm talking about. But it provides a warmth coming back that. Every time that our records have been reviewed, they're like, where did you get that sound? We're really trying to create, and I think we have created, what we call the Lanark sound. We tell people, feel free to bring your own gear for recording or use ours. We have Gretsch drums, Slingerland drums. We have amps by Fender, Vox, Peavey, Epiphone, Ampeg, Sun. We have keyboards. So hopefully all the music files out there are happy with what we've assembled. We certainly are.
And now they're all saying, well, how do we get a hold of you? What's the process?
Oh, it's pretty easy. You can go into our website, which is www.lanarkrecords.com. That's LANARK records.com. You'll see the webpage there along with the phone number, and our phone number is 717-945-5500, and that will give you direct access to Quentin Jones or myself. And just call, and we can create any kind of package for you. The nice thing about Lanark is we do have, I wouldn't say worldwide distribution, but we have North American and European distribution. Our European distributor is out of Hamburg, Germany. Our North American is out of Vancouver, British Columbia. We have contacts in Nashville. In fact, James Riley, who's a terrific DJ down there, just loves us, and he works for us now. And what he does is he listens to everything that we record, and if it's good enough, it goes out to Hollywood because they're always looking for soundtracks for movies, and it goes to our distributors. And if they like it, they pick it up and they send it out there. We also have a real neat promotion right now. If you look at the website, called 52 Singles in 52 Weeks. We release a single every single week. That's really getting some traction, and that has we've had local bands on that, and we've had of course the national acts on that. So you can come into the studio and do your own songs, and you can take it with you. Either you can spend as little as $500-600 and get a little something that you can go out if you're trying to get a gig somewhere, or if you really want to take it to the next level, either have a band or be a songwriter. We'll distribute that out and see if there's any interest. And
Lanark Records is located in Lancaster.
It's in Lancaster. It's right on Oregon Pike. It's in the village of Old Hickory.
And once again, your phone number for contact?
It's 945-5500, and we're at 600 Old Hickory Road.
All right. Frank Barrett, Lanark Entertainment. Thanks for joining us. And by the way,